We've spoken about India, we've spoken about Indian markets, we've spoken about US, but there's another large economic bloc right now which is seeing only one color, and that color is absolutely red. That's right, the Eurozone seems to be headed this time fairly concretely towards a recession. Let's play this short package from Reuters and just try and make sense of what the scene in Eurozone is right now and whether this long talked about impending recession is indeed upon the Eurozone.
Eurozone business activity showed signs of flagging, and that could have the region sliding towards recession. Tuesday saw release of the October Purchasing Managers' Indexes for the bloc. The closely watched gauge of business health dropped to 46.5. That's the lowest in almost 3 years, or over a decade if you ignore the period of the global health crisis. It's also well below the 50-point mark that separates growth from contraction. The details of the October figures made even grimmer reading. A sub-index for the region's key service sector sank below all forecasts. One economist told Reuters that the numbers indicate hiring is all but frozen in the sector, while manufacturers are actually ramping up plans to shed jobs. Forward-looking indexes also sank, with numbers on new business and future output both declining. Put it all together, and some market watchers say it would be no surprise to see the Eurozone enter recession in the second half of the year. For now, though, that isn't quite the consensus view. A Reuters survey of economists predicts growth will flatline, but not fall, over the current quarter.
All right, so a likelihood of Eurozone going into recession, but no consensus on that just as yet. Joining me in the studio to discuss this is my friend, my colleague Amit Ranjan, and of course, our long-lost friend joining us from the road. Thank you, Srinath, Sridharan, for taking time. I know you're traveling and you're in the middle of a journey, but thank you so much for joining us to understand and help us make sense of what is really going on in Eurozone. Is there a recession really coming, Srinath?
Hi, Kartik. The challenge for Europe is, I think they're in denial. This has been coming for quite some time, whether it's ECB statements or different countries talking about it. Nobody wants to accept that they've been in slowdown for so long, be it manufacturing or services. Now, for example, the services indicator which has come out is finally saying that it is flatlining. And even now, if you look at the most of the commentators from the Europe, I think they're doing the semantics play, talking about flatlining, plateauing. They're not saying it is declining. It has been declining. And of course, I think it has got a huge bearing on the Indian services industry, which works with European clients, because they're going to see a lesser number of business or huge margin pressures. Two, I think the historic challenge for Europe is their manufacturing or SME manufacturing, which they were very big at, for example, Germany, completely flatlining, and they're struggling with how are they going to get orders, forget fulfilling orders. And during COVID, they all spoke about, I think, shifting of regional supply chains. Forget the regional supply chain. Today, they need something to supply, and I think that's a basic problem. The fourth one, I think, what is the elephant in the room is, did Brexit actually work? Is there a common thing like Europe at all? Each of the countries are actually using the word euro in a different way, but actually are doing infighting amongst each other. And I think that's the elephant in the room that we need to speak about. And that is a large challenge because they're also competing with each other. You see reluctance of different European countries or customers wanting to pick services and goods from other European zone because of simple thing, trade disputes, which are still struggling. Consumer dispute resolution is still a challenge between these. I think these are micro, but they all add up to the larger macro that euro, according to me, is in recession. It has been on for quite some time. Probably sooner or later they will have to declare it. I think that's a challenge they have.
Right. So some very interesting points you mentioned, Srinath, and let's take them one by one. Number one, you're saying Europe continues to live in denial, but we've seen data emerging from Germany absolutely bang on smack in the middle of recession. We've seen 2 quarters of recession or sort of, below zero growth or deflation, whatever we want to call it, even in France. So this denial is definitely not reflecting in the numbers from 2 of the largest economies of the Eurozone, which is Germany and France. Now, add to that, another interesting aspect that you mentioned was about the infighting within the Eurozone. I want to leave that aside right now and talk about the outfighting which is happening in the rest of the world. Two wars, Russia, Ukraine, and then you've got this conflict breaking out in the Middle East. Now, do you think Europe, for its own sort of, whatever model ground that it took in the Russia-Ukraine war, is now beginning to actually suffer on account of the sanctions imposed by the West on Russia? Do you think it's time for them to bite the little humble pie and say, hey, okay, let's just ease out and maybe look at this entire oil story afresh?
So I think, Kartik, here, let's bring the conversation about greenwashing. A lot of these countries are actually doing greenwashing, right? They're buying the same Russian oil through other countries, including India, and actually claiming it to be very, very clean. So this kind of, and the reason why I call it greenwashing is, how do they actually then run their furnaces and heaters in the winter if they don't get this oil? That's a domestic compulsion that they do. So the challenge for a lot of these Euro politicians, political leaders is this: whatever they might be their outfighting or the conversation they might have about other countries, the challenge is they have to keep their domestic constituents happy, and they're struggling with it. Inflation, cost of money going up, not enough jobs, not enough orders, export orders. Most of those countries are not self-sufficient when it comes to agriculture as well. So that is why the Eurozone originally was supposed to be very, very seamless. So I'm actually wondering and speculating here, is UK going to benefit from a lot of these Euro problems? Can UK get its act right? Of course, they have their own challenges, so that some of these, what they lost out in Brexit, can go back to UK. Will it?
And right. So let's take this to Amit Ranjan. Amit, PMI data has come in, and we've seen the S&P PMI, the indicator of 50, anything above 50 showing growth, anything below 50 showing degrowth. It is well below 50. So do you agree with Srinath? Are we really looking at Europe, despite all these data sets, living in denial?
Below 50, not just for the entire Eurozone, the Purchasing Managers Index, but Germany and France consistently have, the PMI has been below 50. We have seen negative growth back to back in the entire Eurozone for 2 continuous quarters. Another 2, we are into a recession.
Right.
The output has been negative for the entire Eurozone for the last quarter.
And that's 20 countries we are talking about, averaged out.
Yeah. So leave out Switzerland and leave out the Scandinavian countries, minus
which are not
Finland.
part of Eurozone.
Not part of Eurozone. So yeah, the world should not be caught off guard if Europe slides into a recession as early as the end of this year.
So Srinath, let me come back to you. What is it that the ECB can do? ECB has come on record last night, India time, and said that it will possibly hold rates. It's not looking at increasing rates any further because in any case, the country is slipping into recession. Inflation is an evil you have to live with. So rate hike has pretty much been ruled out by ECB. Now, what are the levers available from a monetary policy standpoint to prevent the zone actually going into recession? Because it will have ripple effects on the rest of the world as well. We will have demand even from India, leave alone China. Of course, Chinese goods are flooding every market, but even the IT sector exports to Europe are going to get hampered. The trade between Europe, Eurozone and US is going to get impacted. And of course, we spoke about outfighting in the middle of wars, and crude prices are only likely to shoot up if the war continues. So overall, are there any levers available in the hands of the ECB now?
So I think the only one which any central banker in Europe will do is to create local consumption. How are they going to allow for consumption to pick up? Because that will get the cycle of growth going, at least in the services and the local goods produced. And I think that's a challenge they've been facing for quite some time, and which is what I spoke about, self-sufficiency. How can Europe, how can ECB bring back consumption? I think that's a larger challenge. Whether they do rate hike or rate decrease, you need takers for it. And today, money is almost for free. And what do they do with it? That's a large challenge they have. 2, the energy cost has been increasing for Europe for quite some time. And if you look at, let's say, Germany has been speaking about, or has been using nuclear fuel, renewables, and others. They have not been able to bring unit economics for a lot of these renewables. Whereas if you look at India, we've been able to bring down unit economics of renewables far cheaper than the fossil fuel. Again, It's a learning for Europe that they will have to do innovation from, it need not be from, I'm politically incorrect here by saying white man's game, But look at what a country like India is also doing and take it there. I think that's a learning for them. And three,
Absolutely.
their entire payment system, I mean, the banking system is, I think, pre-digital era. I mean, they will have to disrupt that and bring it to digital. Indian travelers still carry travelers check, credit cards and all that, no digital payments being made. I
Yeah.
think that will also bring down the cost of banking services. That's something that they need to apply to. Multiple things, lots to be done there.
Multiple things, lots to be done. Srinath, Sridharan, thank you so much, and onwards to your journey wherever you're headed. Thank you so much for joining us here
Thank
on
you.
Business Plus.